Triple-E EDC back again with another knife video. So this is the ZT-0762. This is ZT's sort of showcase knife for the year. It seems like every year they come out with one knife that's meant to just showcase what the factory can do. And this is that knife, I believe, for this year. So there are some other knives that also came out this year that I am going to use as comparison as well. But let's go ahead and do some size comparisons here on this knife so you can see exactly how big it is. Then we'll get into what I like and don't like and some final conclusions. Let's go ahead and do the Benchmade Griptilian here and the Mini Griptilian. So you can see this is slightly larger than both of those. We've got the Spyderco Para 3. And the Paramilitary 2, right there. And again, it's bigger than the Para 3, of course. And the Paramilitary 2 is actually slightly larger, although you get much more blade with the ZT than you do with the Paramilitary 2. Next, we are going to do a couple of other ZTs. We have the ZT-0920. Go ahead and do that one up here. That is a huge knife, so of course that's going to be bigger. You've got the ZT-0762, 0562 tie, and that is going to be a little bit larger in the handle and a little bit shorter in the blade. So what you're seeing with this, and I'll do one more size comparison actually. Here is the ZT. What is it, ZT-0990, and this is the Microtech Ultratech. So the main thing that you probably can tell from the size comparisons is one of the best things that there is about this knife, which is the blade to handle ratio. The blade to handle ratio on this is absolutely excellent, and I love knives that have good blade to handle ratio. I don't, one of my biggest gripes with the PM2 is going to be how big the handle is versus how much cutting edge. And that happens for a couple reasons. One is the handle's more like 5 inches, even though the blade's like 3.5 inches. Those aren't exact specs. But then the blade, the actual cutting edge, because you lose some of that because of the choil, right? The cutting edge is going to be a lot shorter. Well, here, you have significantly more cutting edge. And the handle, as you can see here, isn't too long compared to the cutting edge. In fact, it's a little bit shorter than the ZT, while just fitting so much more blade in there. So I really love the fact that they get that great blade to handle ratio right off the bat. The next thing on this is that the blade shape on this is extremely useful. It's kind of like a reverse tanto almost with this shape right here. But it is not the flat reverse tanto that I think a lot of people are used to. This has a very slight flat right here, and then it's basically all very, very slight belly all the way up, which gives you a lot of room to cut on when you're cutting across material. Like, let's say you have cardboard or something, you're breaking down boxes. So this is actually a great knife for that. Also, the flat grind on this is going to help you tremendously in that regard. And the tip on this is still a nice piercing tip, even though it's a reverse tanto. It's not going to have the tip as pointy or straightforward as as on a drop point. So on here you have the tip all the way up here, and when you need to pierce something, it's gonna the force comes at the top, right? Here it's at the bottom, but if you angle it right, it's gonna give, this is still a good piercing tip. You can see here that you have plenty of tip strength on this. It's not, you can even see it has more tip strength on here than the Benchmade Griptilian. So this is going to be a robust knife in a non-robust package, which is excellent. Continuing the theme with the non-robust package is the handle itself. This handle is meant to do two things. It's meant to show off the what ZT can do in the factory. This is why it's a showpiece. But it's also meant to, lighten up the knife. So this is an extremely light handle. Let's go ahead and take a look inside. First of all, you have a subframe lock, which, ZT and Kershaw do very well. Next, you have mostly carbon fiber in the scales. You do have some liners here. These are two different types of titanium liners. So one is anodized, one is not, or two layers, I should say. And it creates this kind of cool effect. I know it's sort of a love it or hate it effect, but I kind of like it, especially set off against the black. I think the blue and black is quite nice. So I quite enjoy that. This also has the tuned detent system. So the ZT0707 is the one that came out last year, I think it was, with that tuned detent system. There was a little bit of a letdown, I think. I never actually reviewed that one, so I don't know whether I've never handled it. I don't know if it's good or not good personally, but I know a lot of reviewers were hating on the tuned detent system because it didn't have the same, sort of drop shot action that people had come to expect from ZT, right? With that ball bearing action. And so with the ZR707, they put the tuned detent system in, and it took away from some of that action while solving a problem. So the problem that it solved is a lot of people tend to put their hand on the lock bar. It's not a problem for most people who have been in knives for a while, but it is a problem for some people, especially when they're not used to frame locks or subframe locks. They will put their finger on the lock bar, and that will almost lock it out basically from opening. So the tuned detent system actually has two detents, one on each side of the blade, and it has sort of a springiness on. So normally the lock side is the only part of that you get a detent from. I don't know if you can see the detent ball on the lock side. It's right up there, but you can see that detent ball right up there. But there's also a detent on the other side on this. I don't know if you can see that, and it like sticks out a little bit. So there's a metal piece in there. I don't have my flashlight, otherwise I'd show you guys. But there's a metal piece in there that is almost like a lock bar itself. It's sprung, or has a little bit of springiness to it, and it basically puts a little bit of force on this side with a detent, and so it helps to suck it in. But also, it allows for a detent to happen while putting pressure on the lock bar here. So I'll put some pressure on the lock bar here, and you'll sort of see that. And I was pretty decent pressure on the lock bar here, and you're still able to open it. Let me go ahead and put a lot of pressure on the lock bar, and yep, you're still able to open it. So it really does work, which is impressive. Did it take away from the action on this one? It actually, so once you get past the detent, it's not as drop shot as the ZT0562, and I've had both the carbon fiber and the titanium versions of that knife. It's not as drop shot as the 920, but it's still very smooth going down. I still get it, that joy of closing this and feeling sort of the ball bearings roll across the blade. That is that's a feeling I think most people know who have bearing knives, and it's still enjoyable on this, which I quite like. Next on this is the steel on this is, I believe, 20 CV. Yep, 20 CV. And by the way, this little symbol there that looks like Star Wars, that actually is, it's not Star Wars, it is Kershaw's in-house design maker's mark. So this is an in-house design. So you have the 20 CV here. 20 CV steel is basically M390, same chemical composition, just different company. And the ZT does a decent job now with it. I know they had some heat treat issues a number of years ago. Their heat treat has been good for a number of years, so I'm no longer worried about those. They seem to have similarly gotten over the hump like Benchmade did with some of their QC a while ago. In any event, this is great in that regard. Next up, well, I think that's probably about it for the good on this. There is some bad on this, which unfortunately we'll have to talk about, but that's part of the deal. So part of it is, like I said, the action is, it's still nice, but it's not what you're used to with the ZT because of that tuned detent system. Next thing is the ano on here doesn't stand up that well to when you scratch your pocket clip against something metal, but you know, that's not it's not totally unexpected. I don't love the billboarding all over the knife, the ZT on the clip, especially at the price point that we're at. We don't need, you know, ZT on the clip, and it's a lot of billboarding here also. Serial number, model number. I don't know what the mark is next to the model number. I'm sorry, that says Kai. That's KAI. That's the logo for Kai. Kai's the owner of ZT and Kershaw. It's got USA. It's got CPM 20CV. It's got the maker's mark. There's just a lot of billboarding on the blade. Don't love that. The flipper tab is a little bit small, so you sometimes miss it. You saw me sort of slip off of it one time earlier, but you do get it most of the time. It is just a little small. The clip, I think, is a little bit of a letdown in the price range, not just the billboarding, the actual clip itself. I know, you know, most of ZT's clips, you know, this is a regular deep carry clip, so this is actually a pretty good clip. It's not, you know, a high-end clip, but it's a pretty good clip overall for retention on that knife. You know, the Emerson clips that ZT does, in this case, is a Les George, but it's basically the same clip that's on the 0640. That these clips are just not great for a lot of reasons, and this is sort of more of that. It's not a great clip, especially in the price range, which brings us to the next real issue I have with this knife, which is the price. It's $340. That is a lot of money for what you're getting here. There is a lot of competition in that price range, that 300. You're almost in Chris Reeve territory at that point. And, you know, Chris Reeve is definitely a superior knife to this one, although the machining on here is really impressive, what they're able to do, how they're able to lighten everything up. I do think that is impressive. So that is another thing to keep in mind. What was I say? There was one more thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention these. This is a reversible pocket clip here, which is good. So, you know, if you want to carry it in your left pocket, you can. I think that was pretty much it. I think there might have been one more thing I had in my notes, but I think I deleted it by accident. So in any event, that is the knife. As far as final recommendations, well, let me actually give you a quick comparison before we get to final recommendations. I just want to... Oh, I do remember the last point. The last point was the weight. So the weight on this is actually... If you like light knives, this is actually a good knife because despite the size of the blade, you're getting a lot of blade basically for what amounts to a light knife. Now, what comes with that is because there's so much blade on a light knife, the balance point on this is a little bit off. It's back here basically. Let me see. Whoop. So it's a little bit farther back. It's not terrible, but it's just a little bit farther back than I'd like it. You really want the balance point, you know, to be about right here in most knives, and it's sitting right about here. So you do feel like the blade's a little heavier than it needs to be. You know, it's definitely more in the feel, I guess, than the actual balance, but it definitely feels a little blade forward in the hand. So that's that. Let's do a little bit of comparison here. Obviously, there's a size difference between these two. These are the two models for this year. But you can see that the handles aren't all that different in size, just a little bit shorter on this one than this one when you line up the pivots. But the blade is also a lot on the 0990. It's not quite as tall and definitely a little bit shorter as well. So if you want a more compact option, this is a good option. This is also a fairly light knife. But this does have, it is a little bit heavier because this is stainless steel on here, whereas the internals here are titanium. So that's one of the big differences. As far as which one of these two I'd recommend, I definitely recommend this one, but there's a caveat that this one costs $100 more than this one. So if price is no object, I recommend this one. If price is an object, this is actually a really good knife. Kind of underrated for this year. Is it going to be one of my top knives for the year? No, but kind of underrated a little bit, I have to say. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that This window in here, right here, not functional. You cannot flick this without tremendous effort. I think I've done it once or twice, but it's very, very difficult to get your finger in there. So don't count on being able to do that if that's what you're looking at. All right, now back to the 0762. Final conclusions on this is look, this is a good knife. It's a good knife overall. It's a very impressive knife by ZT. It is, but I don't think it's a knife for everyone, and I'm going to tell you that even though I like it, I'm not going to recommend it. And the reason I'm not going to recommend it is really the price. If you can get this on the secondary market and get a decent price for it, it may be worth getting. But at full retail or even the MAP pricing that Kai has, I would not recommend it, mainly because $340 I believe is too much for this knife. I recognize that the machining and everything had to go into it, but there's just too much competition of better knives that are out there at this price range, and so that's my main gripe with it. But if you are interested in buying it and you wanted to go check it out, if DLT has it in stock, it definitely would help the channel if you do purchase it through DLT. I have the link below in the description. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate your guys' support, and let me know in the comments if you've had this knife, what you think about it, or at least handled it, and how it stacks up against the current market. Otherwise, just love hanging and chatting with you guys in the comments section. Take care, guys. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and the notification bell so you get all my content. Thank you.